In this video, we are going to be testing our Block Explorer to make sure that it works correctly and to make sure that all of the endpoints that we just created work correctly. And really, this is just about the end of the course. If our Block Explorer works correctly, then we already know that our entire blockchain is working correctly and it runs on a decentralized blockchain network. So everything is really wrapping up right now. This is the last test that we will be doing in this course. So it's pretty exciting. So in order to test our Block Explorer, first things first, and we should have all 5 of our nodes running right now. Next, let's head over to the browser and let's open up our Block Explorer by going to localhost 3001/Block Explorer. And you can actually go to a Block Explorer that's hosted on any of these nodes because our blockchain is hosted across the entire network. So let's actually go to our node that's hosted on localhost 3003. Cool. So we can see our Block Explorer front end right here. Now, in order to test our Block Explorer, we need to add some data to our blockchain. So that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to create a lot of transactions and create some new blocks and add a lot of data to our blockchain so that we can test it. So let's do that now. The first thing that we want to do is open up a new tab and go to localhost 3001/blockchain. And actually, let's go to 3002 because we can go to any node that we want to go to. Cool. So this is our current blockchain, and all it has is a Genesis block. And actually, the first thing that we need to do is create a network because our nodes are not connected right now. So let's do that first. So let's head over to Postman. And on our node on 3001, let's hit the register and broadcast node endpoint to connect all of our nodes. So let's make the request with localhost 3002. And that worked. 3003. And 3004. And finally 3005. Cool. So back in the browser, we can see that all 5 of our nodes are now part of the network. Cool. And this is our node that's hosted on localhost 3002, but we can assume that all of our other nodes are all connected as well because we already tested this functionality. Okay. So now what we want to do is add data to our blockchain. So let's do that now. First, let's start by mining a couple of blocks. So let's go to localhost 3005/mine. And let's go to localhost 3004/mine. And next, let's add some transactions. So in Postman, we want to hit any of our nodes, but we want to make sure we hit the transaction broadcast endpoint. So let's hit localhost 3002. And in the body, let's send a transaction. So we'll make one transaction worth 100 Bitcoin and send that. And next, let's alter one of these addresses so that we can keep a reference to it. So I'm just going to change this address so that it has the name Alex at the beginning of it so that we can reference it more easily. Next, let's send this transaction with 200 Bitcoin. And let's send one more with 500 Bitcoin. Next, let's mine another block. Next, let's add some more transactions. And this time we'll make Alex the recipient. And we'll change this to be this random string address right here. And let's make Alex the recipient of 1,000 Bitcoin. Next, let's make one where Alex is the sender. So we'll change this address right here to some other random string. And we'll have Alex send 30 Bitcoin and send that. And let's make another one where Alex sends 40.65 Bitcoin. And let's mine another block now. We can mine this one on whatever node that we want to. So we'll do 3001 this time. Cool, that worked. And I'm just adding a bunch of random data here, as you can tell. So you can feel free to add whatever data you want to. The purpose of this is just so that we can explore our blockchain inside of our Block Explorer. Next, let's add a couple more transactions. We'll make one where Alex is the recipient. So we'll change this address, and we'll make Alex the recipient of 400 Bitcoin and send that. And we'll do one more transaction where Alex is the recipient of 120 Bitcoin and send that. And finally, let's mine one more block. And we'll mine just one more extra block on localhost 3004. Cool. So now we should have 7 blocks inside of our chain. So let's check that now. And we do. We have 7 blocks inside of it. And all of our transaction data should be inside of here, which it looks like everything in here is good. Cool. So now we can test our Block Explorer because we have some data to explore. So inside of our Block Explorer, let's first get a block by its block hash. So let's select the block hash option. And in this tab, let's grab a block hash. So I'm going to grab this block hash right here from our block that is index 4, and it has a couple of transactions in it. And I'm going to take that block hash and paste it right here. And I'm going to hit the search button. Cool. If I zoom out, awesome. So this is basically how our Block Explorer works. We enter a hash or a piece of data that we're looking for, and in return, we get that piece of data. So this is the block returned to us that has this block hash that we searched for. And as you can probably tell, we are hitting our block hash endpoint, which is pretty cool. So inside of our block, you can see that it has the block hash of this string right here, which is what we just searched for. It has an index of 4. We can see all of the data on it, including the timestamp, the notes, the previous block hash, and the number of transactions that are present inside of this block, which is pretty cool. Next, let's search for a transaction by a transaction ID. So we'll go into this tab, and I'll increase this here. And let's just grab some random transactions ID. So I'm going to grab this one right here and copy that and paste it right here and search for it. Cool. So we have all of the transaction data. We have the sender, the recipient, who is Alex, and the amount, which is 400 Bitcoin. Awesome. And finally, let's test our address endpoint. And we want to test Alex's address endpoint. So we can copy it from right here and paste it right here and search. Awesome. So we can see the address has a balance of 749.35 Bitcoin. And we can see all of the transactions that Alex has been a part of in this table right here. We can see when Alex was the sender and when Alex was the recipient and how much each transaction was worth, which is pretty awesome. Cool. And for any of these searches, if we input a piece of data that doesn't exist, we'll get back that no data is present for that search. Awesome. So it looks like our Block Explorer works just as it should. Now, like I said before, you can feel free to dig into this file a little bit and customize it however you want and have it display different types of data for you, or do whatever you want to do with it. But this is pretty cool. This is a user interface that we can use to interact with our blockchain, which is pretty awesome. Cool. Well, believe it or not, that sums up most of this course. At this point, our entire blockchain is built out. In the next section, we will tie up some loose strings and go over what some next steps might be. I'll see you in the next section.